Hello, it's a real honor to be here today as moderator and entrepreneur myself. And it's nice to be back at Global Entrepreneurship Week, representing the University of Texas at Arlington and its new Center for Entrepreneurship and Economic Innovation. Now, my name's Matt Clark. I'm faculty director at the Center for Entrepreneurship and Economic Innovation at UTA, where I'm also assistant professor of practice in the Art and Art History department, where I teach entrepreneurship to design and art students. As I mentioned, I'm also an entrepreneur myself. I've had a creative practice for over 20 years and recently launched Fide & Clark, a home goods business, creating unique goods for the home in collaboration with artisans from Oaxaca. I have some outstanding people and entrepreneurs on the panel today who bring with them a great depth and range of experience and knowledge. And it's always a pleasure to hear their stories and insights. Right now, I would like to ask them to briefly introduce themselves and share the genesis or the beginnings of their company. Elise, let's start with you.
Great. Hi, I'm Elise Stoltz Dickerson, and I'm based in Fort Worth, Texas. I have an MBA, and out of business school, I went to work for a large pharmaceutical company and spent about a decade and a half there learning the whole commercial side of how you build brands, both over-the-counter healthcare brands and prescription brands, and how you take them around the world. And then in 2015, I was kindly asked to leave, and that was really the genesis of my company. And so get knocked down, and I decided to get right back up and start a biotech company. And that is really how Eosera got started.
Great. Thanks, Elise. I'm so excited to learn more. Robbie, how about you? Will you quickly introduce yourself?
Sure. Yes. My name is Robbie Werner. I own Stir Crazy Baked Goods here in Fort Worth. And we've been open almost 10 years. We got started because I wanted to create something for myself and for my city. We had very organic, very simple beginnings back then, and we have over time just grown kind of organically and proportionally with staff and inventory and stuff like that. But we've been successful, and it's been a really kind of exciting journey for us.
Great, thank you. And one of the best bakeries in Fort Worth, I might add. So if you haven't been there, Stir Crazy Baked Goods should be on your barometer. Sal, would you like to introduce yourself as well, please?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Matthew. Sal Alhelou, graduate of UTA with an MBA. My career started as a mechanical engineer in the building industry. My career went through the entire life cycle of a building, from design to construction to operation. And most recently, about a couple of years ago, I started EOS Labs. And what we do at EOS Labs, we help people understand what their utility data is telling them about their buildings. And the term that we use for this is behind the meter intelligence. It's been a great journey to start a business and start the entrepreneurship journey. And I'm delighted to be here with you guys. Good to meet you all.
Thank you, Sal. It's great to have two UTA alums with us today that are part of the $17 billion economic impact our alums have in this region. And it's so great having you all here today. And I thank you all for participating in Global Entrepreneurship Week with the University of Texas at Arlington and serving on our panel, Entrepreneurial Pathways. I would also like to thank Dell Technologies, the title sponsor of Global Entrepreneurship Week Fort Worth. Today, we're going to discuss the different pathways entrepreneurs take, what drives these decisions, and the challenges founders face along their journeys. I want to quickly review the different pathways and then lead to questions and discussion afterwards. So most of us know that there are two different pathways typically when founders start their companies. One being the lifestyle, which we typically think of as the founders finding a way to support their lifestyle. finding something they're very passionate about, focused on profits, typically not scalable, always dependent on the owner's skills, personality, energy, and contacts. It's very flexible. There's bootstrapping involved. There's a lot of freedom, and they're really not accountable to anyone except themselves, or maybe the few investors being family and friends. On the flip side, high growth or high potential, focused on revenue. It's all about increasing growth and value. They typically have a well-diversified customer and vendor base, well-documented financials. It can be run without the owner. There's an exit plan, and the founders are accountable to stakeholders. And I also think there's something in the middle there, and that would be the small business owners, people who run dry cleaners, tire shops, tailors, convenience stores, hair and nail salons, and locksmiths, to name a few. So I've just kind of briefly given the overview of lifestyle, high growth, and just the small business in the middle, and I want to move on to our questions that I have for you guys. And this is really geared towards all of y'all. I'm interested to know, was it a conscious decision when forming your business if it were to be a lifestyle or high potential company? And was it predetermined based on the kind of business you formed? Sal?
Yes and no. So and I'm speaking from personal experience, but also just if you think about the typical way of somebody getting into business. I divide it into two phases. So phase one is the desire. So you have to have the entrepreneurship bug in you that you want to start a business, you want to go into that challenge and experience. But then after that, you have to spot an opportunity. And once you spot an opportunity, that's what determines what type of business it's going to be. So if the opportunity that you're stumbled upon is something that can be applied at a larger scale, and you feel it would be scaled up in a manner that can be financially beneficial to the stakeholders, you're already determined it's going to have to be that way. And if you don't scale up, at some point, you're not going to be competing. The reason why, because once you introduce your business, other competitors will come up that will scale, and your business will not be viable anymore. So by the nature of the industry and the problem you're solving, I think in every case I can think of, the decision is already made up for you.
Great. Elise, how about you?
Yes, I totally agree with what Sal said about it. There's sort of the analysis of the opportunity. When I started Eosera, it was very clear that there was a large gap in the ear care market. There was no large manufacturer paying attention really to the category. And so if you think about when you walk into a CVS or Walgreens and you go to the ear care section, historically, there just weren't many products available. But we all have two ears and, always have problems with these ears. And so I saw the opportunity to come in and really reshape the entire category. So I knew this was going to be a scalable, large company that hopefully outlives me.
Great. And Robbie, how about you?
Sure. So when we started our business, or when I started my business, we had 3 very young children at home. And so deciding to create a business that fit into the lifestyle I already had was important. I wanted to be home in the afternoons after school. I wanted to be able to pick my kids up. I didn't want daycare to be involved at all. It really had to fit the setting that we had created as a family. So that was very important to me. And I really didn't think about how much money we were going to make or, those big goals in mind. My goals were, I want to make my city as cool as I possibly can. I want to help do that. What am I good at? I had an art degree and no culinary experience except that I love to bake. So I wanted to create a business with something that I was naturally good at. And so, and coupled with, my family lifestyle that was already in place, like, how could I make this happen? So we just started as small as possible. And we did create that niche that Elise is talking about. What's missing? What are we looking for? When we started out, there were chain restaurants everywhere. And, but there was kind of that turnover of supporting the local. And we could recognize that in the neighborhood that we're in, the near south side of Fort Worth. And that was a real celebration. And so putting our business in that neighborhood specifically just kind of fit the whole picture.
And I think you guys were one of the trailblazers on Magnolia, opening your place really before Magnolia is the Magnolia we know it today. And it's such a great area because it really does support a lot of entrepreneurs like you, Robbie.
Yes. And it's weird to, kind of give myself that term or whatever, pioneer, whatever you want to call it. We were some of the first people to say, no, corporate America is not how we want to build this business. I don't want a Starbucks on every corner. Like, what's something special and unique that we can offer that kind of happy times for every family, and making cakes was kind of how I did that. But yeah, we were kind of a model for other businesses that have gone into that area, which is kind of cool to watch happen.
Certainly, certainly. This next question is for Elise and Sal. First off, it's kind of coincidental that both of your companies start with EOS. I don't know if you guys collaborated on getting those names, or at the time when y'all created your businesses, if EOS was kind of the buzzword or whatever, but really kind of ironic that y'all are here today. Anyhow, I'm interested to know if your past experience and background affected your entrepreneurial path, and if so, how? And then the second part to the question, was your lens always focused on growth and scalability?
I'll take that. But first of all, no, I did not have any discussion with Elise about the names, and she had the name first. But before I answer that question, while I was listening to Robbie, it occurred to me regarding your first question, what decision or how you make the decision about what type of a business you start. It also has to do with the life cycle of the product or the business you're doing. So if you're introducing something new to the market, you want it to scale up as quick as you can, and get it to the largest territory in the marketplace possible. If you're introducing a product or a service that is already there and people are used to it, then you have the choice. So I think if it's important for you to have a lifestyle business, consider options in business where you're not reinventing the wheel and you're not introducing something new to the marketplace. Now, on your question for my background, it did play a huge role in it. The problem that we're solving specifically in my company, it has to do with understanding how a building operates, which is something I've done for years. And if I didn't have that journey, I wouldn't be able to think about the problem in a different way and try to solve it and have this company started. So in my case, it was absolutely the full driver that I came from engineering, and I had the path that I went through.
Great.
I'll go. So like Robbie, my undergraduate degree is art and design. And I think having that creative foundation is just really powerful for entrepreneurship, because you just learn the value of thinking differently, of trying different things. And so that certainly played a role into, I think, our success. And then having the structure of corporate America for me was invaluable, because it is a complicated, healthcare is a very complicated space. And so it was almost like going to, a decade of school in order to train me to do it myself. So I wouldn't trade that experience. There were, pros and cons, of course. But everything in my path has led me here. I just didn't know I was going to get here, if that makes any sense. Had no idea where I was going.
Did you have that entrepreneurial bug when you were younger, or did it just kind of come when you were at this fork in the road?
Well, here's what's funny is in my MBA program, I focused in entrepreneurship. And so I must have, I picked entrepreneurship in school because I got to see a bunch of different things. It wasn't totally finance or, totally marketing. And I liked the diversity of it. But I don't think it was planned that I'd be an entrepreneur.
And an interesting path from art and design to a master's in corporate America and then back to this. And I love how you mentioned art and design and entrepreneurship, because in a lot of ways, there's so many parallels, big risk takers, lots of unknowns. We have to be accustomed to failure and adaptability. And we always have to think on our feet and outside of the box. So I've always said to my students that, hey, there's a real fine line between an entrepreneurship and an artist, because they're really one and the same.
Absolutely. Yep.
I agree with me.
Go ahead.
If I could just say, in art class, you're handed this canvas or you have to build one. And having never taken a business course before in my life, you're really given this blank canvas of you can create whatever you want to do with the experiences you bring into the picture, and then do something with that. So every decision that I've made has been just a total evolution from the beginning to where we are now. It's exciting. That's the best part of it, I think.
And what caused you to open the bakery? You said, hey, it's part of the lifestyle, but there had to be some kind of passion that moved you from thinking about it and cooking at home to opening up a store and broadcasting and marketing yourself, and branding yourself.
Well, I think that being so naive is part of it. I had no business opening a business. I mean, really, if I could make the decision again, knowing everything now from the outset, oh my goodness, I would say absolutely do not do this. But I don't know that I would, because I am creative and I do love the challenge of being handed a problem and figuring out how to solve it. Like, that's one thing. My family and I love to travel. We love to get in the car and just take a really good road trip. And on those road trips, we love to support mom and pop places, go off the beaten path. Instead of going to McDonald's, you can go and find a local diner, that's run in a tiny town in the middle of nowhere. And that's what I felt was missing in our city, was like these little cute places that offer handmade goods. I just didn't see that was happening where we lived. And when we moved here for Adam to finish at UTA, his art degree, I was like, well, this is where we're going to plant our family. This is where we're going to start and finish. And how are we going to make this place cool? Because we're not going to move anywhere else. And I wanted to just invent that. I just wanted to create that, and I didn't see it happening as much. So that's really what moved me to do it. And we just started as small as we possibly could. We had a 500 square foot warehouse that was used as an office, and we turned it into an eatery. And doing that was, it cost a lot of money to make it work. And I wanted to be at the center of it. I wanted to be in the middle. And then, little by little, the more orders we took on and stuff like that is when we included more staff and included more people and just continued to grow in that way.
I'm interested to know how you started off as far as funding and getting the funds to open your building and convert it into a kitchen and eatery. And
well, I didn't know how to do anything like that. I didn't know to go to the city and apply for permitting. I didn't have like any sense of how you even begin a business. So I just literally Googled everything. And doing that in 2009 is different than it is now with, experience of entrepreneurship and knowing people and networking and stuff like that. I also had a brother-in-law at the time that had more money than he knew what to do with. So he was like, oh, Bill. So I landed in a really lucky place back then. Some people have parents who can fund things. Some people have an inheritance. Some people go to a bank and get a line of credit. Other people apply for grants if it's a nonprofit organization. There are 1,000 different ways to get money, but that's how I started out. And we kind of had this pieced together spreadsheet of how we're going to pay this money off. I think we spent $45,000 to get open, to start. And I literally had a cigar box full of money and a phone, and that was it. We made our own website. We did our own stuff. I bought flour at Costco, whatever you do to make it as cheap as possible. And I just had to teach myself little by little. And we had this 5-year financial plan. Like, we're going to either pay it off or fail, in 5 years. And it was one or the other. And I was like, I'm not going to fail. We're going to make this happen. And we did it in a year and a half. We paid all that money off. Wow. And mainly because I didn't pay myself much at all. And then he left the business and I kept it going. And that's I've just continued to teach myself throughout the years.
I'm glad you mentioned about, how much you had to start up, because a lot of people think it takes $1 million to start up a business. But in fact, where most businesses start for less than 5,000. So it's possible for anybody. And, I think entrepreneurship's everywhere these days. Certainly in 2009, there was not a lot of information about starting your own business. Now, entrepreneurship is taught in every university, in every department. It's really nice. Right. I'm interested to know about how Sal and Elise, and you touched on a little bit about both from corporate backgrounds. How did that impact your perspective as founders for high growth, high potential companies?
Elise, you want to take it?
Sure. So part of my responsibilities in corporate America included evaluating companies and technology to acquire. So big companies are out there. They can't always innovate as fast as small companies can. And so I was able to see what other small companies or startup companies were doing. And that was really inspiring, right? To see a small team of 5 people that, I always would have expected them to be way smarter or, more sophisticated than me. But then once I really started to get to know some of these people, I was like, oh, well, maybe I could do something like that. So that helped shape where I thought I could go then when I started my company, and knowing that we can innovate faster. So that's been sort of our, I guess, benefit is that we can bring products to market quick. We can disrupt markets, and then hopefully long term, either a big company or somebody will want to buy the product line for an exit.
Awesome. So in my case, working for corporate America or large company, it was more of a confidence boost more than the experience itself, because I got to see, I got into corporate America with the assumption that big problems are solved by big companies. But then when I worked with large companies, like Elise had mentioned, I found out it's very difficult for larger companies to tackle all problems efficiently and effectively. And for a large company, in order to tackle these problems, typically they depend on smaller scale teams or innovators or startups. So the biggest thing I got out of that is self-confidence that people like me or a small team that I can put together can really solve a big problem. So that's the biggest thing. But then there are the experience of really managing large scale projects, be able to manage people remotely. In my case, when I worked in corporate America, I had to deal with teams who are remote in different states or different regions. And in order to manage that type of settings, you have to change in your approach of management. And that experience is very helpful for me today because I deal with team members that are located in different geographical locations. So that was definitely a big help for me.
That's great. I liked how you guys mentioned, being lean and nimble. These smaller type businesses can really do things a lot quicker and more efficiently. And I'm just amazed, Elise, you started your company in 2015, 6 years ago, one of the fastest growing companies in Texas. You're now in 13,000 stores. How did you do it so fast? That's amazing.
I think some of it is just luck. We work really hard, but some of it is just good fortune. The first retailer that I presented to, so each retailer resets their shelf once a year. So when you walk into a store, you can think about that category only gets new products reset once a year. And so you have one shot each year to present to the buyers, and that's if they'll give you the opportunity to, get in front of them. And so I was a nobody, and the buyer at CVS gave me 10 minutes. And literally, it's 10 minutes. It's not 12, it's 10. And so I practiced this pitch. You can just imagine, like, it's all or nothing. Right. And went in and said, why don't you try this one product in a handful of stores and let's see how it does. And I walked away from the 10 minutes with full distribution. He said he loved the idea. He loved the concept. He loved the product. 8,000 stores, needed it in 4 months. And it is a moment of sheer joy and sheer panic that every entrepreneur will go through because you have no idea what you're doing. We pretend like we know what we're doing. And in front of the retailer, I pretended, but I left the meeting and I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to make this product? I don't even have final packaging. But that's what I have figured out is that is normal entrepreneurship. You're going to have problems all the time and you've got to solve them and you've got to stay positive and keep moving forward. And so that's how we've gotten to where we are today.
Wow. That one pitch made all the difference, right?
It did, because it got me in the door. And then, once other retailers see that, a big retailer like CVS takes you, and we grew their category 35% in the first year with one product. Now they have 10 products of ours on their shelf. But other retailers then start to take notice. And so, that first one is the hardest one. Just kind of like the first year of starting any business is the hardest year.
Right. Did you have any early breakthroughs, Sal?
In terms of customers?
Right. Yeah. Just in terms of finding the opportunity that you knew was out there.
Yeah. So in my case, developing the technology or software takes months and years. So in our case, I knew the problem I want to solve, but I didn't know how it's going to be used exactly, how we're going to shape it. And I knew I have 6 months to a year. So during that time period, I reached out to multiple companies that I thought they would be interested in trying the solution for 6 months or a year. And during that time, I got their feedback. So once the first benefit, it gave me access or breakthrough to one large company, national company, and they used our software to help them navigate and manage their entire portfolio nationwide. But the second benefit is it gave me the opportunity to fine-tune the product and really get it to a format that would be also usable for and beneficial for other customers as well. So in my case, it wasn't 10 minutes that made the difference for me. It was more of the drips along 6 months to a year that got us through.
And I have to imagine that your experience in hotels and casinos in Vegas and then the healthcare facilities in Texas really helped you kind of pinpoint those areas.
100%.
Right. Very cool. 100%. So Robbie, you've already said a few things about what were the deciding factors when you created Stir Crazy Bakery. Maybe you can go over a few of those. And why was building that lifestyle brand or company the right fit for you?
Sure. I knew that I wanted a lot of flexibility in how I manage my time. So I needed to be able to come and go as I needed to. So I just had a couple of people that helped me bake alongside me, and I just trained them exactly the way that I needed to, carry out the kind of offerings that we had at the bakery, and made sure that they were doing things the way that I wanted them done. We were very all about all natural products and, starting everything from scratch, not a baking mix. We had to train our customers a certain way, and I am starting a bakery, and I'm, there are already other local bakeries in place. There are big places like Walmart and Target, of course, but then there are also other mom and pop bakeries. So how does that fit with the lifestyle, with the, with training people and customers? And, so we had to incorporate all these different little parts together to make what we wanted. I wanted our ethos and environment to be at the forefront. So I wanted something that was a little more punk rock than like gingham check tablecloths and whatever. I wanted something black and white and cool and different. And I wanted us to say, we're doing it this way and we're not doing it your way. That was kind of tricky to say, this is how I run my show, and you can eat my cake or you don't have to. You kind of have to be, I felt like I needed to have an attitude of, this is my business, this is how I want to do it. And the people that worked with me and customers that came to our business kind of had to understand that, I felt like. So that was tricky, a position to kind of maintain, because you want and need people to work with you, and you also need customers. So how are you going to be that bold and also win them over? So that was part of how I started, my vision ultimately was, I just really literally made a list with pen and paper and said, these things are important to me, these things are not. And we created every decision based on those visions for ourselves.
And I have to imagine that as an artist, as a creative, that this, baking is a big creative outlet for you. Was that kind of something that you were aware of when you, after you graduated from UTA with your art degree, that, hey, maybe I can utilize this in another area?
Yeah. And I think that every artist, no matter what university you go to, kind of has to make that decision. My paintings might look like, old world art, or they might look like modern, whatever. But this is my style. This is my way of doing it. And this is why my art is important here, and in those same ways, I don't want to do anything with fondant. I don't think that Duncan Hines is the best, like you have to say, this is my way and this is their way. And this is how I fit in to society. This is how I fit in with my ideas here.
Great. I was lucky enough to kind of know my path when I was young. I discovered painting when I was 13, and I knew that that's what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And that's what I was determined, and I had to find a way to do it. I had to find a way to figure it out on the fly. There were no entrepreneurship classes when I was going through undergrad and grad. And that's really the reason why I started entrepreneurship at UTA in the Art and Art History department. It's because I wish I had it. So really, I felt like I became an entrepreneur along that path, along the journey of my creative journey. Not, like I said, so many similarities between artist and entrepreneur.
Mhm.
So next I want to move to growth and what challenges you guys might be facing with growth. Sal, what kind of challenges is EOS Labs facing concerning growth?
It's in my case, it's adoption of new ideas, and especially that we are B2B, business to business solution. So you're dealing with large organizations, utilities, and multi-site operators, and so on. And change is difficult. And when you introduce a new way of looking at things and solving a problem, it takes time and it takes familiarity with what you do and your team and so on. So I would say adoption is the number one challenge. On the other hand, the positive thing is, even though adoption takes time, once one customer adopts your solution, then it's in a large territory. So it's just a different way of a growth. It's more if I were to think about it, it's more in chunks of a market share versus smooth growth, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Certainly. Robbie, as CEO, chef, baker, cleaner, marketer, you wear a ton of hats at Stir Crazy. Seems like a lot. I'm interested to know what's the most rewarding about running a lifestyle business, and how in the heck do you do it all?
Well, when you start out, you have this big giant list of goals that you feel like you need to accomplish. And the coolest thing 10 years after starting that list, those ideas, is saying, oh my God, I actually did it. Like, I can't believe it worked. Because I had to teach myself so much, and I had to, Google every answer, and I had to answer every question about what are GMO products and why don't you use them? Anything that came along, I had to really buckle down and learn. And that takes a lot of time. It took way more time than I ever imagined it would take. But I did it. I set my mind to making it work, and it did. And that's very rewarding. And as I learn more and as I accomplish more, and the more we're successful with what we're doing and the more customers we gain and things like that, the more people I can hire. And so I'm not so much central to the production of creating those baked goods anymore as I was in the beginning. But now I get to contribute a little bit more to society and put somebody in that position and give more pay or give raises or whatever, like the success is marked for me by, well, now this person gets to tackle this project. And maybe it helps them to realize their own personal growth in the company, but also realize, for a little girl that watches me frost a cake one day, oh my gosh, I want to have my own bakery one day. Like we get to watch all these parts of people kind of discovering what we've created, and it's just like a trickle effect to what else is possible for us.
Mm. Elise, you wear a lot of hats too, I know. What's the most rewarding thing for you for running Eosera?
By far the people. I get to see people take on new challenges every day, succeed in new ways, fail in new ways. We celebrate failure around here because it happens all the time, including myself. And so we try to have a really safe environment for our employees. And we, at the beginning of starting this company, put culture at the very top and said, we are going to have a culture that is positive, that builds people up, doesn't tear them down, that, celebrates the win, highs and the lows. And so really that's what gives me the greatest joy every day. And the rest, can kind of just roll off, as long as my employees are happy and my team's happy and productive. I feel like we're moving in the right direction.
Right. And I saw that on your website, you know, putting people over profits, and you've kind of been that way from day one. How do you think that that has helped your company evolve, grow? Because, you know, you always see other companies that the employer gets lost, but you're putting a hierarchy, you're putting really importance on your employees and on the people you work with. How has that affected the growth and the outcomes?
So I came, you know, I think corporate America has it wrong. And I understand public companies, you know, shareholder value, it's all about shareholder value. And so, you know, as I moved up in a company, it was all about how much money I was delivering to the bottom line, you know, that quarter, that year. And I didn't feel valued as a person or an employee. And I know most of the people around me didn't. We were just a tiny cog in this massive wheel. And it's no fault of the company. It's just how corporate America is kind of set up, right? And so I said, I just think there has to be a better way. And I had read a lot about conscious capitalism because I am a capitalist. I believe in the capitalistic system, but I believe that people are the engine of capitalism. And if we treat people well, they're going to be more productive. They're going to be more creative. They're going to work harder. And so it seems kind of simple to me, you know, put people first, the profits are going to follow. And I think we've been a really great case study in that, that we have, you know, I don't ask. This is actually the first year, we're in year 6. This is the first year I've actually really set financial targets for my team. And some quarters we make them, some quarters we miss them. We celebrate it all, you know, because you're not going to win everything. But we're still growing and having fun and bringing great products to market.
Seems like a great topic for a TED Talk.
Yes.
People first. Sal, you wear a lot of hats too at EOS Labs. What's the most rewarding thing for you about running a high growth company?
Honestly, the impact. So in my case is when I see companies, our clients saving hundreds of thousands of dollars in energy costs or impact on the environment, and I see that gets reported. It's a priority for them. They report it to their shareholders. They report it to government and to meet different regulations. And to be the engine behind that, it's very satisfactory to me. Also people, to see people grow. I mean, I don't have we've been in business only about 2 years, 1.5 years or 2 years, so I don't have the history that Robbie and Elise share and their perspective. But certainly I do see ourselves in a couple of years down the road where we celebrate the growth of the team and how one intern ended up becoming a team lead and so on. So it's a combination of both.
That's great. Impact. And I liked seeing how you are also trying to help the customers of your companies you work with. And I think that's a great kind of outlook. I'm interested to know about, you know, continued growth for you in international markets. At least do you have kind of your lens focused on international markets? Are you looking for international growth, and what kind of challenges are you facing there?
Go ahead.
Sure. So absolutely, there is a need around the world for our products. But as you can imagine, every country has a different regulatory process. And so meaning approval process. So you can't just, you know, launch a product in a market without going through their different government pathways. And so we have made the decision to focus on the U.S. and maximize the opportunity in the U.S. before we start investing in other markets. So it's definitely on the horizon, but I think, you know, any investor, and I think most entrepreneurs would agree, focus is key to success, and you can't really take your eye off, you know, the ball too quickly. And so that's sort of our plan. But absolutely, we'll look outside the U.S. as we grow.
Sal?
We definitely we're still in debate about this, honestly. The reason being, for us, it makes sense to focus on the U.S. for the same reasons that Elise talked about. To drive focus in marketing and business functions will bring more results to you. But for on the other end, we know of multiple companies that have more of a focus on the type of services we offer, and it makes sense for us to try to tap into it. As of right now, and probably for the next year, we're going to continue to drive focus in the United States, but we're not closing the door to any international conversations. We actually have we're currently having a couple of conversations with utility companies overseas for adoption of our solutions. How that's going to be implemented, of course, we have to still meet the regulations and make changes that meet their units of measurements and so on. So there's some complexities involved, but unless the opportunity becomes very attractive, I think the focus will continue to be in the United States.
Great. Robbie, are we going to see any more stir crazy baked goods around the Metroplex in the future? Are you guys thinking about growth?
Yeah, so I mean, the more profitable a business becomes, the more decisions they have to make about what they're going to do with that extra cash, right? So we got through last year, everybody did. And in the end, after I slashed my budget, we ended up with a little nest egg, which was surprising. I was like, how did we make this happen? I have no idea, because so many people didn't. And so it was one of the options for us this year in particular to expand into another neighborhood. And we had lots of conversations. I got very close to opening another storefront. That didn't work out. The person that owned the building couldn't meet us halfway on some stuff, and it just was like, you know what? I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing for the remainder of this year. But you never know what's going to be possible for the future, and you have to ask those questions all the time. We're not growing internationally by any means, but we can take this tried and true product and create something for a bigger market. So instead of growing into more storefronts right now, we are creating cake mixes and brownie mixes, and maybe possibly we'll be able to introduce those to grocery stores. People that have never heard of Stir Crazy can now take this home and make it for themselves. And shipping, is such a big deal. Last year, especially, that was so important for people who couldn't get out and explore on their own. We realized how important that is for us too. So we are going to possibly in the early part of 2022 explore how we can get our product out to more people. And while that's not international, we can go maybe nationwide with it, which would be very cool. So yeah, growth is, there are 1,000 ways to grow a business, and those are some possibilities for us.
Hey, I know all of you guys had to have some kind of hardships over COVID, and you might still be having those hardships. Any hardships for you guys? Elise, I imagine you have some with supply chain issues. What are those, and are they in your rearview mirror yet? Or are you still kind of battling with those?
Yeah, so we never shut down since we manufacture our products. We have seen, so we source pretty much all of our plastic material. So anything, bottle or cap that is made of plastic is coming from China. We have tried to source from other countries and from the United States, and you just can't get it anywhere near the same price. So we have seen shipping prices go up about 10 times. We've seen the time to ship go from maybe 3 to 4 months to 6 to 8 months. We've tried air freighting things, but it is, exorbitantly expensive, you can imagine, to air freight. And then factories shutting down. So, COVID outbreak in a certain part of China, factory shuts down for 2 or 3 weeks, and things start getting delayed. So on that end, we've had to just make adjustments. I am really happy that we actually make our final finished product, because once we have the bottles and caps in hand, we can still then make the product and get it to the customers. But you just adapt, and we're just absorbing a lot of those price increases right now, hoping that some of that will unwind. I'm not sure that it will, but it certainly has eaten into our margins.
Right. Sal, you facing some challenges with COVID?
We faced challenges along the years, mostly in 2020, and it was really reacting to what the businesses we serve had to do in order to deal with the situation at the time. Each month it seems like a different challenge, but the end result of it, for us, it was actually a good thing, because companies who shut down their buildings, now they're becoming more cost sensitive towards their bottom line and their energy consumption, and they want to know what can they do about these buildings to reduce their liability. So in terms of interest from our audience, it helped us. It brought a lot more attention to the type of solutions we bring to the marketplace. But for about 12 months, it was difficult changing to different requirements and expectations.
Right. Robbie, how about you? You mentioned that you had some problems and you have a nest egg at the other end. I imagine you had to close down for some time. How did you it sounded like you kind of thrived through it. How did you do it?
Well, I mean, thrive is a strong word for how we coped with the situation, but we were lucky enough to be part of that group of people that got funding from government. Everybody did. But simultaneously, we did stay open the entire time. We couldn't open our doors to let people in, so we went outside quite literally. We had tables in front of our windows lined with cookies and whatever baked goods, and people would point to what they wanted, or we would go outside and take their order. We had to do stuff like that all the time. Curbside was such a big deal. Currently, we're still dealing with shipping. We have boxes, pie pans, things that we also have to get in stock. Even things as simple as flour. I mean, we're baking everything from scratch. So if we're short on something, then I have to go spend retail dollars at Target to get whatever base ingredients we need. And that's double my budget, So in the beginning, I really did take my spreadsheet of bills and said, turn off the lights. And if we could control the electricity, we did. Things as simple as that. I stopped paying for timesheets and I hand wrote them. There were just things that I could handle. And it was like what I call the dark days of the bakery, when we did everything from scratch and everything. Not baking, but I mean, all the legwork, all the things you don't want to do, like wash your own aprons. I just started over and just pinched every single penny that we could to make ends meet. And in the end, we're rewarded with customer support, and we just got those people back as they got more comfortable with shopping again and coming inside and not wearing a mask and whatever people got used to again. We've just seen that increase in growth happen, which feels miraculous even now.
You really did some bootstrapping there.
Yes.
That's great. Got one last question for you guys. I think all entrepreneurs look at the future and what's going to happen in the next 5 years. What are you guys most excited about upcoming for the future for your businesses?
Well, I'll say that what I find myself doing every now and then, and I mean maybe every couple of years, you just set an entire batch of new goals, because we really have accomplished everything that I wrote down in the way back days. So I'm in the process right now. Fourth quarter for us is our busiest season for the entire year. And so right now we're just kind of through the weeks little by little, like getting those custom orders for holiday baking and stuff like that. But in January, I know that I'm going to set my mind to what do we want 2022 to look like? And how are we going to reach that by the end of the year or the end of 5 years? So even though I don't have anything specific in mind for what we want to do beyond what we're already doing, I know that I get to work toward that, and I kind of get to start over and say, okay, fresh start. Where do we begin?
Exciting. Elise?
Yeah, so for me, it's the unknown that makes me excited. What retailer is going to take us next? Who am I going to hire next? And you don't know until you get to that moment. And that excites me.
That's great. I like the unknown too. Sal?
That makes us a three. Actually, I'm in the same boat as Elise. And the knowing that we're going to grow and knowing that we're doing our best to grow as much as we can, not knowing exactly how many cities or territories we can help customers with is, I think, is a motivation for us. We want to do the most that we can. And we are in a place where it's kind of hard to project. It's not because you're dealing B2B, it's hard to project market share in terms of number of users. And the unknown is driving us to do the best that we can every day.
That's great. Gosh, so many great takeaways from this talk today. Putting people first, having impact, setting goals, delighting your customers. It's been a real joy and so insightful to learn from you all today. Thank you so much for sharing your time, your experiences, and your expertise. Thank you, Elise, Robbie, and Sal. I wish you all continued entrepreneurial success, and I thank all of those who attended today. To learn more about entrepreneurship at UTA, visit the Center for Entrepreneurship and Economic Innovation's website at go.uta.edu/CEEI. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.